Dead or Alive, a 3D fighting game released to arcades in 1996, developed and published by Tecmo. It was the first entry to the now legendary series. Later released to home consoles, it made its way to American PS1s on March 31st, 1998. An overall commercial success, it was key in helping Tecmo overcome their financial problems at the time and kick off the now infamous franchise. However, it didn't take off in the West nearly as much as it did back in Japan, likely due to stiff competition. Tekken 3, which released only 1 month after DOA 1 on the PS1, and Tekken 3 at that point already had a named franchise that people were familiar with, as opposed to Dead or Alive's first entry. Team Ninja, an in-house studio for Tecmo, was in charge of developing the game, and is still in charge of developing the game and its spin-offs today. Dead or Alive had 4 versions released: the arcade version, the Sega Saturn version, DOA++, which was an arcade revision, and the PS1 version that we'll be looking at today. There is also technically DOA 1 Ultimate, which was released on the Xbox, and is an enhanced version of the Sega Saturn port. The cabinet showcases plenty of art across it, and about the only thing I can judge is the lack of the side panel art. Otherwise, this style holds up pretty well, and still looks pretty good today, if I say so myself. The PS1 version was quite different than the arcade or the Saturn versions, utilizing a different graphics engine, revamped fighting engine, new music, stages, and even new characters, adding in both bass and an unlockable Ayane. The PS1 version also removed ring outs. The game was reviewed highly among US gaming critics at the time, many outlets placing it between an 8 and a 9, talking about how the beautiful graphics for the time and fluid motion of the gameplay felt great. Official PlayStation Magazine gave it a 4.5 out of 5, as well as the tagline, "Come for the bouncing, stay for the fighting," praising the beautiful character models and the dozens of revealing alternative outfits, but criticizing the repetitive endings and trite characters. The article they wrote on DOA mentions an interview with Tecmo where they ask about the well-proportioned and hyper-bouncy female fighters, with Tecmo saying that they were used to get people's attention, which very obviously, even to this day, almost 30 years later, worked maybe better than Tecmo even originally intended. OPSM says that you can't really blame them for this approach. With how crowded fighting games were at the time, it helped them stand out, and in hindsight, it did help DOA get its name out there and get the now decades-old series rolling. The case art, I believe, is pretty great, showcasing the female fighters on the front, including Kasumi with what looks like white hair for some reason. Moving on to the back of the case, we get hit with a ton of text. Standing out to me here is the "new, only on PlayStation, more characters, hot new costumes, and radical new moves." And above that is some text running down some of the highlights of the game, claiming to be the fighting game you've been waiting for, with seamlessly rendered characters, combined attack maneuvers, and dynamic backgrounds. Followed by that list, however, is a segment for features available only on Dead or Alive, like beautiful women, because obviously no other game had that, danger zone modes, and reversal attacks. The fact that Tecmo specifically wanted to point out the beautiful women does crack me up, honestly, and shows that they felt like it would be a huge selling point for the game. To highlight that point even further, we get a quote from Ryu Hayabusa himself, claiming that the women are total knockouts. I love the campy selling here, and the fact that it's quoted by Ryu, obviously the protagonist for Ninja Gaiden, but also a character in DOA. Obviously, a lot of people aren't going to know that at the time, so a ton of people probably just really thought that some dude named Ryu really liked the female characters. The disc looks really good as well, with the art a little muted and in the background, with the game's title overlaid on top of it. Moving on to the game, we get the opening cinematic showcasing all of the characters. Of course, starting with the female fighters before an array of action sequences, which I think is pretty well done. The menu screen is pretty basic, just like most fighting games on the PS1 were, giving us a good number of options though, which included tournament, team battle, training, kumite, survival, versus, and time attack. This is a wide array of options that give a good amount of replayability to the game, even more than just the standard arcade mode. We get an assortment of 9 playable characters to start with, and I chose to go into tournament mode with Kasumi. First thing is that the character models and backgrounds look absolutely amazing for the time. The gameplay itself I found to be far better than other 3D fighters that were made in the 96 to 98 range. I think it plays far more fluid than Tekken 1 or Tekken 2, which we will in the future look at those games on this channel as well. The character designs are fun and vibrant, and we cannot ignore the, well, giant cartoonishly bouncing additions to the female characters, which does give the game some charm with just how absurd Team Ninja made the actual bouncing. I found myself not really noticing this much until the end of rounds where these cutscenes would play, and then they just follow no laws of logic. But again, I think it is kind of part of the charm of the game, and it definitely did help the game become more memorable and stand out, because I even remember hearing about that as a kid, or rather more as like a teenager, and then I never even played DO1, and I knew about that. So take that for what you will. I think it hit Tecmo's goal of being memorable and standing out. The music is pretty good. It feels exciting, and it was never annoying to me during gameplay. I think it's overall just a very solid soundtrack. The costumes and outfits for characters range from normal to completely absurd, and adds to kind of the game's fun factor, like fighting Bayman in a desert in what appears to be like full scuba gear. I would describe the gameplay as fun and fast-paced, with an addictive grapple and reversal system that can help you turn the tides or keep on the pressure to your opponent. After beating the final boss in tournament mode, you get the credits screen and music, followed by some video of gameplay in black and white as the credits continue. However, there's no ending story or epilogue, which is a bit of a letdown. For collectors, the physical copy of the game, complete with case and manual, currently sells for about $50. Unless you just really need to add it to your collection, or you're just a really big fan of DOA 1, I kind of think that is a bit high for what's on the disc itself, so I would probably avoid it for that price. Overall though, I do think DOA 1 was a solid 3D fighting game that laid an impressive foundation for the future of the series. The characters were memorable, the graphics were pretty impressive for the time, and the gameplay was fluid and fun. DOA 1 set the groundwork for what would become an excellent series that, while it has hit a small lull of late, I do hope continues and will improve as well. The PS1 title is definitely worth a bit of playtime, even for just an hour or two, and gives great insight to the beginning of this wonderful franchise. If you enjoyed this look at DOA 1, please take a look at some of the other videos on our channel where we talk about some other games, and give me a subscribe. We're going to talk about more DOA in the future, as well as some other PS1, PS2, and more titles.